And that doesn't take away the matter being presented by Honorable Sagi on suspension.
It was clear that lawmakers had taken positions along party lines, but that didn't stop this appeal that came as another point of order.
In trying to do politics with such an important process, we do not end up undermining both the individual and the issues which he has raised, as well as the institution that he represents. So therefore, I am inviting you, Mr. Speaker, to use the wisdom which you have always used to direct the House on this issue.
The appeal didn't stop this position against the motion.
The president is given the powers to remove. Now he remove it. There must be defense action because the power to confirm the removal is by that of the Senate. The president has taken defense action, which is suspension going towards removal. Hold on. Yes. Hold on. Mr. Speaker, the law is very, very correct. There is no need to misinterpret it. The first point of action is removed by the president. Then there comes the proviso. The proviso says that for him to be removed, it must be supported by 2/3 majority of the Senate. But the first action that must be taken, if he disagrees with the position of the Senate of the Central Bank of Nigeria, is to go ahead and take the necessary action.
In a decisive move, the Speaker put the motion to a vote.
Those in support of the motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. The ayes have it.
We have a chat with a lawyer, Mr. Nwani Aja, who spoke of the legal implications of the suspension of Mr. Sanusi Lamido. Barrister Aja, you're welcome to the Gavel.
Thank you.
Now, this week has been a very interesting week in the country and even in the National Assembly as regards the suspension of the CBN governor. Now, on Thursday, President Goodluck Jonathan forwarded the names of two people to the Senate. The CBN governor, a nomination for the position of the CBN governor and the deputy CBN governor. What are your thoughts on the removal or the suspension of the CBN governor by the president?
I think we are running a government of blackmail. And I'll tell you why. The background to this suspension, so to speak, started in 2011, if I'm sure, because when the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria gave a report that so purportedly indicted Sanusi. And then Sanusi was said to have responded to a query issued to him from the presidency 2011-2012. And since then, everything was shoved under the files, under the news, until now. I think, permit me to say that every ministry, every departmental head, every parastatal head, every agency's head, our government is structured in such a way that it is a routine procedure for them to generate negative memos against these people and keep somewhere. This is in a way to force you to toe the line at critical junctions point. So I think the issue of removal of the suspension of the governor of the CBN is done mala fide, is done in bad faith, because it comes at an inconvenient point when we are looking forward to him giving us more data on how our national treasury has been paralleled. That said, the issue of suspending the CBN governor is not one known to law. It's not contemplated at all by law. I've had so many opinions from very distinguished and learned colleagues, but I think they are all unfounded. Some of them are unfounded. First of all, the CBN Act, upon which the president proposed to act, does not make any provision for suspension, and it is a mark of ingenuity for them to try to rope in the Interpretation Act. Fine. Section 11 of the Interpretation Act says that, provides to the effect that in any situation where an enactment gives a person a power to make an appointment, it should be construed that he also has the power to remove or even suspend. However, the Interpretation Act is a general provision, it's a general law. How? Section 1 of that same law says that the provisions of this act shall apply to any enactment whatsoever, only to the extent that there is no contrary intention expressed either in this act or in that other enactment. So, if a particular enactment is tailored in such a way as to preclude the operation of the Interpretation Act, then it will apply. Now, what I'm saying, the fact is that there is a canon of interpretation that says that the direct express mentioning of one particular thing excludes every other thing. How? If the law says that the president shall eat food once every day, the president can eat rice, can eat beans, nobody cares. But if the law says the president can eat rice, shall eat rice once every day, the president can never eat ever. He cannot say because he has said that I can eat, therefore whatever is edible is what I can consume. Now the CBN Act says, section 11 sub 2, let me be specific to F, says one of the instances whereby the CBN governor ceases to act in that capacity is if removed by the president, which means removal. And then it comes under, there's a proviso that provided that this removal is in consonance with a resolution, so to speak, or a vote by the Senate requiring 2/3 majority. The meaning is that that particular act is of a special kind, which means it cannot be taken to be the general law, so to speak, because it requires, it is not every law that requires that the particular person must be removed in that procedure. Therefore, since there is a particular procedure to remove him, every other thing that is not contemplated, including suspension, because you cannot say for now, because as it stands now, Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, who was screened and passed by the Senate, is not the CBN governor. As it is now, he's not the CBN, because you cannot have two CBN governors. You have one in an acting capacity, then you have one that is so-called suspended. Therefore, the act of suspension is not contemplated by the law, is not provided in the law, and therefore, to my mind, is illegal.
Now, is Sanusi not subject to the rules and regulations that govern public officials?
In which case, you're talking about the public service rules?
Yes.
No. No, to an extent. In addition to whatever is contained in the terms and conditions of his appointment letter, because the Act also specifies that he is subject to whatever is in the terms and conditions. And I have not heard the spokesman of the presidency referring to the terms and conditions of his... so we will take it that the terms are not helpful to the case of the presidency in this instance now. Now, Sanusi is a public officer only to the extent that he's occupying a public office. I remember that the current governor of Abia State, when he was the chief of staff to the governor, then Governor Oju Zakalo, the then candidate of the PDP, took him up after the election, but he did not resign. And the court held, even the court of appeal at the Port Harcourt held that strictly sensu, he was not a public officer for the purpose of resigning within a specific number of days before the election. Therefore, Lamido Sanusi, to the extent of his being the governor of the central bank, is not amenable to the public service rule. Do not also forget that before you serve, before you terminate, do not forget that the public service rules recognizes dismissal, recognizes termination, recognizes interdiction, either with salary or without salary. These are not applicable to the CBN Act, and therefore the public service rules recognizes the fact that somebody who has to pass through disciplinary proceedings must be afforded fair hearing. It is not so in CBN Act. In fact, the conditions upon which the CBN governor ceases to be a governor are disjunctive, which means from A to F, any of them suffices. In which case, the president can remove him, can just send words to the National Assembly that I want to remove him for whatever reasons not contained in the Act. And if the National Assembly agrees with him by 2/3 majority, that is the end of the matter. Sanusi cannot say, I was not heard. Because here, the law has already provided a situation, a procedure. There is no law stating that Sanusi must be subjected to the issue of, except if it has to do with something like gross misconduct, because you have to establish it before it goes. But if the president wants to exercise the discretion to remove him, then he doesn't have to give him any reason. In fact, he doesn't even have to give him audience.
Now, as a public servant, was there no other way that he could be disciplined apart from suspension or even removal?
Removal. That's the other way. That's what the law says. And let me also give you something that you have to chew on. Have you bothered to ask yourself why the confirmation of the CBN governor is by a simple majority, but the removal is by 2/3?
Okay.
I think it's a critical fact that people have to look at, because the financial sector of the economy of any nation is very critical to the survival of that nation, and therefore the management of the financial sector, which is by and large one of the schedules of the CBN, has to be relatively stable, has to be insulated from the politics of the day. And that is why the removal of the CBN governor. Do not forget that in the day-to-day running of the Senate, so many issues come up. If anyone requires 2/3 majority, I cannot remember the last time that we've achieved a 2/3 majority in the resolution of any issue at all at the Senate. Now, the framers of the Constitution, in their wisdom, think that the position of the central bank governor should, to a large extent, be secure, so that we have security in the policy, the highest financial regulator in the country. So I think if you take that in mind, you take the intention of the makers of the law in mind, you will now understand that the suspension is working against that intention. Because if that be the case, that means the governor could be suspended from day one till the last day. If the president has the power of suspension without recourse to the National Assembly, it means he could be suspended. Then the intention behind making that law, which makes it difficult to remove him, would have been defeated.
Now, the CBN governor is at the center of investigations into unremitted funds from the NNPC to the Federation account. What role would you think this suspension would have on investigation, and what role is he supposed to play now? Can he even appear before the committee?
Whoever steps into Sanusi's shoes is in big trouble. Let's be practical. How? Now, let us take the acting governor now, the woman. The next time she appears before either the House committee or the Senate committee, and they ask her questions to either confirm or rebut whatever Sanusi might have said, because right now Sanusi is out of the picture. If she confirms it, if she confirms that the figures given by Sanusi, that she stands by Sanusi's presentation, then of course you know that some feathers will still keep ruffling upstairs. If she rebuts it, then she will be arraigned against the generality of Nigerians, because we will believe it is a script that she's been elevated to act. So whatever she does, she's like the proverbial between the devil and the deep blue sea. Whatever she does, she goes to the right, she will offend the gods. She goes to the left, she will offend human beings. But I trust in the credibility of the institution to drag itself along. I believe that whoever is going to step in, whether the person in the acting capacity or the person who is going to be substantive from June, will have enough willpower to stand by verified and credible figures. Some of the reconciliation, some of the things they are reconciling are things that took place since 2011, 2010, which means that all this while you have a statutory function to make sure that you partner with the relevant government agencies to make sure that all your figures are correct. You will not reconcile until somebody blew the whistle. Now you ask yourself, what would have happened had the whistle not been blown? So I think that the investigation going on in the National Assembly is timely. I don't want to look at the politics of the man, Sanusi, or the CBN governor. But I think in as much as it might have been improper for him to whistle from within, because you can say that some people use the word biting the fingers that fed him. I think the two evils side by side, it is better for him to whistle and we blame him for whistling from within than for him to keep quiet and the work in NNPC continues, because I bet you know that the current reference to NNPC is the government ATM.
Now, this is where we draw the curtains for this week's edition of the Gavel. If you have any views or opinions on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us, and see you again next week.